What's going on, everybody? It is Wayne G, joined by Mark D, and we are the NFL experts, and we are live. What's going on, Mark?
Same old, same old. I always say bigger stuff, bigger pile, you know?
Absolutely. So I definitely have a story for everybody, but before I do, please make sure you are following us on all our social medias. Maybe you're watching us on social media, but we are at NFL Experts Pod pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at NFL Experts Pod. And if you want to email us, we are NFLExpertsPod@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your thoughts, your concerns, your criticism. We want to hear it all. So that's where people can find us. It's not rocket science.
Yes, please chime in, everyone.
Now, I did want to say, because I know, obviously, if you are watching the show, if you're a listener of the show, we consider you family. You're a friend, you're family. And I got to let everybody know, and Mark knows this too. Sunday afternoon, I was in a head-on collision car accident, and it was very scary. I have huge bruises all over my left side, and my chest, like my sternum, is like really sore. So like I can't cough or anything like that. Like if I sneezed the other day, it felt like somebody hit me with a sledgehammer. So definitely sore, but happy to be alive. It was very close. I remember thinking I was sliding down this hill, and my car just kept picking up speed, and it wouldn't brake. And I was heading towards either a telephone pole or a cliff, and I had to decide, where do I want to go? And I thought, well, a telephone pole, I'm gonna hit it head on, but I was going like 40 miles an hour down this hill. So I hit the telephone pole head on. All the bags came out, 6 airbags, all came out. But I remember when I made that decision, I'm like, all right, I'm deciding to hit the pole because the cliff looks way more dangerous. So, and then I thought, like, right before I hit the pole, I had that moment thinking to myself, this might be the last decision I ever make. And fortunately it was not, but it was a very scary situation.
Well, I'm glad that you're okay, man. Like, I'm a firm believer. I've lost a lot of people in my life, and life is short. So I'm really glad that you're still here with us and that you made the right decision by hitting that pole, because the cliff might not have been a good idea. So I'm really glad you're here, Wayne.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I'm here too. And hopefully our listeners are glad I'm here too, because otherwise it would be not as much of an expert show, is what we call it, I think. I'd let Mark rename it, though. He probably wouldn't name it that. All right, so we do have some topics to get into, some NFL topics, and we're going to jump things off. Usually we don't have the little next logo for our first topic, but I did today because I was just feeling frisky. So here we go.
Spicy.
The 49ers and the Eagles. The 49ers, just stomped the Eagles this weekend, 42-19. It's the second time they've stomped a top NFC East team, because the Cowboys, they beat 42-10. They're just demolishing these teams. Obviously, if you're following the show, I've had the 49ers as number one in my power rankings forever. I was so sad, though, because Mark knows this. Mark actually joined the show. We talked a little bit before we hit record or before we hit live, and I told him the 49ers are going to beat the Eagles like they beat the Cowboys. It is going to be a blowout. And I was trying to find that somewhere in our clip so I could post it as a reel, like, hey, look, I predicted this, everybody. But I said it to you off the air before we hit record.
Well, I will vouch for Wayne. He did say it, and he called it. He is an expert.
So, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, the Eagles going into this game, they're 10-1. Everyone's like, yeah, they're the number one team in the NFL, and they just get absolutely blown out as if they were, an AFC South team. Like, what was your thought on this?
Well, I'm the firm believer, like you, that the Niners, when they're completely healthy, they're going to beat everyone. I'm sorry, but they have so many stars. They're the type of team that they will wake up in the morning and run through a brick wall. That's the type of mentality they have as a team, and I love that. So, like, I didn't really see – I was kind of with you. I agreed with you when you said they were going to get stomped like the Cowboys, and they did. And because, like I said, they are a powerful team. Like, I just read a stat that said Trent Williams, their left tackle, hasn't gave up a sack in over 360-some days. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy. And Nicholas Manning agrees with you. He said the Niners look unstoppable right now. I agree with
That's
you,
my
Nicholas.
guy. What up, Nick? What up, Doc?
They definitely look unstoppable. And I agree with you, too. Like, when everybody's healthy, we got a healthy Brock Purdy, healthy Christian McCaffrey, healthy Deebo Samuel. And then that defense with Bosa, they went out, they got Chase Young, which is just unfair. It's like a cheat code having him on the other side. I mean, they're just unbelievable. They don't have any weaknesses. But saying that, I have to ask this. They've lost 3 games. In fact, they lost 3 in a row to the Vikings, the Browns, and the Bengals. And I was trying to look at the stats, and it seemed like the biggest thing was keeping Brock Purdy in check. But considering the Cowboys weren't able to do it, the Eagles weren't able to do it, were those 3 games, was that just like a fluke while they're trying to figure things out? Or did those teams have a good game plan that other teams could emulate?
Those 3 games they were without Trent Williams, like I just talked about. So that could have been a lot of the reason why Purdy was not playing good. He didn't have his left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And again, we'll see how they do. I have the 49ers Ravens Super Bowl. That's my Super Bowl pick. And even though the 49ers, I think, are the better team, I am hoping that the Ravens win the Super Bowl and Lamar Jackson wins the Super Bowl MVP, because I know that there were a lot of people who came out, criticized him early, just called him a running back, which I hated. And then even when he won the unanimous MVP, and now the new criticism of him is that he can't win a playoff game. So I would love to see Lamar Jackson win the Super Bowl.
I can see that. Like, so it would be a rematch of Super Bowl 48? No, 49, right?
Whichever one it was, but without a murderer at middle linebacker.
All right. Yeah. So I think that'd be cool. My prediction is still Dolphins Lions, because we've never seen that matchup, and I think that'd be great to see.
And who would you have winning that?
Lions, because the Lions haven't won anything in forever.
So yeah, it's a sentimental pick. I get that. All right, so let me ask you this, because this is the other thing in the game. One of the things that happened, we got to see a little bit of a scuffle between Dre Greenlaw and a security guy with the Eagles, all because Greenlaw, I guess, he felt threw down Devontae Smith, inappropriately. And I have to vouch for Greenlaw on this one, because I played football and I'm not a very strong guy. I played cornerback. Now, he's a linebacker, so he's a little bit bigger, but I played corner. And so there were a lot of guys, in order for me to tackle them, I had to like swing all my weight to the side to pull them down. And that was just how I tackled people who were bigger or faster than me. Now, I know that Smith's like 163 pounds and Greenlaw is 263. So you could argue he didn't have to do that, but it did look like he had him around the waist, and Smith was still kind of, his legs were churning. And so he just turned his body and flipped him. I didn't think it was an egregious, violent tackle. I don't know. I'll have you talk about what you felt about the tackle first and foremost, because I didn't think it was that bad. But then secondly, the security guy getting into a shouting match with Greenlaw, who takes a swipe at him.
Okay, so I did think that the hit was a little egregious. He kind of flipped him over like a wrestling move, sort of. So I can kind of see why Devontae Smith got mad. But the security guy, he's a chief security for Nick Sirianni, their head coach. And he was just there protecting his guy, but he stepped out of line when he stepped on the white line and he started getting into it with Greenlaw. That is not his job. His job is to protect Nick Sirianni and nothing else. He's not supposed to get involved. But speaking of which, I read on the socials this week that Greenlaw and DeSandro actually talked and they kind of apologized to one another, and it's all squashed. So I'm guessing they're probably doing that to see so that the NFL won't fine them both.
Yeah, and I don't believe that, there's no hard feelings here. It's a football game. It's the heat of the moment. A lot of things happen that when, cooler temperatures prevail, they're like, all right, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I don't know. For me, I didn't understand him getting involved for the starters. But even when I say involved, all he was doing was yelling at Greenlaw, which, just shut up. You're there to, like you said, you're there to protect the coach. Just don't get into jibber jabber matches with the other team. But what do you think about Greenlaw? Kind of took a swipe at him. Looked like he swung at him a little bit, but he missed. Like he kind of swung his hand in front of his face and then turned his finger into like a pointing motion, making it look like he was trying to point at him.
I don't think he swung at him. I think that they were just kind of like doing some pushing. Like DeSandro actually kind of gave him a, hey, dude, back up kind of thing. And Greenlaw was like, dude, who are you? Why are you touching me? You didn't even be here right now. So I kind of see both sides of it. But I'm more on the side of Greenlaw that guy shouldn't have been on the sideline.
But he shouldn't have been. Well, I always side with the players in situations like this. And we'll actually get to my feelings on that in a 2-minute warning. But in this particular situation, yeah, I hope neither of them gets suspended or fined. They both got ejected. That's enough. I don't think every ejection has to come with a fine. Sometimes the ejection is enough.
Well, they're saying that DeSandre could possibly lose his credentials and not be allowed on the sideline the rest of this season. So that's probably maybe why there was some apologies going back and forth.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. Another Eagles bit of news that we had here, this was after the game I saw this, was that the Eagles signed Shaq Leonard, the linebacker from the Colts, who they released. Now, name recognition-wise, great signing. But in reality, I don't know what he brings to the Eagles. I mean, even at his best, at his absolute peak, which he's not at anymore. He's played, I think, 3 games in the last 2 years. No, I had it written down here. So he has 0 sacks on the season, 0 quarterback hits. He has not had a sack since the 2020 season. Now, I know that his job was never to get sacks. His job is to be the middle linebacker. All the traffic gets directed towards him, and he makes the tackle, which is why his rookie year he had 163 tackles. In the last 3 games, he's had 11, 10, and 9 tackles, so he's tackling. Is this something that the Eagles needed? Do they need a guy to come in and make tackles? Like, do they not have a middle linebacker type?
Well, they had Nakobe Dean that they drafted, and he's hurt, so they needed someone to fill in that slot. But I think also when you're talking about Leonard's sacks, I think possibly maybe Leonard was used a different way when he was getting those sacks compared to now, because now maybe they're not using him in that role. And maybe Philly will. Maybe that's why they're getting him, is like, hey, we have all this talent, and all we need is some extra guys, like kind of like the Niners, just adding talent, and maybe he's that extra piece that they need.
Maybe. Again, like I said, I feel like he's kind of again, just like a tackling guy. He reminds me of in a way, Ray Lewis, except Ray Lewis did get sacks. But I remember the Ravens had geared their whole defense around Ray Lewis to the point they're like, all right, we've got 10 guys on defense besides Ray. Their job is to take up 10 bodies so that every play Ray is one-on-one with whoever has the ball. And I think you can do that with Leonard because he's a smart guy and he's going to make those tackles after 1-2 yard gains. Doesn't get a lot of tackles for a loss. Like I said, he's not an explosive guy. He's not going to get in there and get sacks and get tackles behind the line of scrimmage. But he's a guy that if you're having a hard time, especially stopping the run, that's really where he excels. He's going to get those stops for you. I don't think they have that problem, but like you said, maybe it's a short-term replacement, and then at the end of the year, he goes somewhere else.
And also, the dude had a lot of back problems. So it's like, how much does he really have left in the tank? Like, how many plays a game do you think he's got left? 30 plays, 60 plays? Like, how much does he have? And maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe he's going to go to Philly, and he's only going to be used sparingly. And during those moments, he'll be at his best.
Okay, so maybe he's like a first and second down guy, and then on pass downs, he's out and they bring in somebody who can rush.
Yeah, something like that, maybe.
Okay. And the other topic with Philadelphia is obviously the tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. Jalen Hurts kind of trying to get that extra yard or two, and everybody pushing in and getting it. Now, there is some talk, and it's just talk, just rumors right now, but that the NFL wants to ban this play. And I'm curious to get your thoughts. I hate the idea, and I'll get to that, but what do you think? I know we've touched on it. I think a couple episodes ago we touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on a potential banning of the play.
Okay, so let's just be straight that it wasn't the NFL, well, I guess the NFL, but it was Roger Goodell. There was a report that came out that said Roger Goodell wants this play gone. He didn't say why. I'm guessing because one team does it really well and the other teams in the league can't do it well. Maybe because of player safety. I have no idea why they want to get rid of it. I think the play works. Like I told you, it's kind of like a cheat code for the Eagles. Like I told you, most teams have to get 10 yards for a first down. They have to get 9 because they're going to get that yard and they're going to make it. So they only need 3 downs to make it.
Well,
you know what I mean? So they already have an advantage over everyone.
I hear that, but here's where I think that the tush push or whatever you want to call it should not be banned. Is it kind of reminds me a little bit of the shift in baseball. And I hated the shift being banned. I was like, if you're a good hitter, just hit around the shift. You know what I mean? But here's what I will say is that the shift was used against every team in the league, every left-handed or right-handed hitter who pulls the ball. This is one team. It's only one team who's having success with it. So why would you ban something? Because I understand if like 25 teams were having success with it and you're like, listen, this is just kind of cheapening the game. We have to stop it. But it's one team. Why would you ban something that is only benefiting one team?
I don't understand that either. Because what I also don't understand is last year at the owner meetings, they discussed banning this play and they decided not to. So I'm not sure what their thinking was then to all of a sudden now where Goodell's like, oh, I want it gone. So honestly, I don't understand. But I'm with you, dude, that I don't think it should go away. I think just because they do it and they do it well doesn't mean you should take it from them. If all these other teams could do what they do, they would be doing it too.
No, I 100% agree. So yeah, I think it's just silly. Hopefully it sticks around. So I think 15 minutes is enough time to spend on the Eagles and their issues. Let's talk about two other quarterbacks who had really good Sundays. So Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love. The Packers beat the Chiefs, and I have here 27-19. Jordan Love goes 25 of 36 for 267, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mahomes 21 of 33, 210, 1-1. Now, Mahomes has had turnover problems all season. This has been an Achilles heel for them. And Jordan Love, I have two thoughts on this. I'll give you the first one, and then I'll bounce it off you. We can kind of come back. But my first thought is this is kind of a coming out party for him because I just did an article about how Jordan Love statistically is Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre in their first 11, 12 games. Like he's identical stats to them. So if you're getting the next Aaron Rodgers here and Jordan Love, which nobody's saying, even though his stats are identical, because I don't think they know that. But like, hey, this is kind of like the coming out, showing you this is what I can do. I did this against the Chiefs. I can do this more often the more reps I get. So I was happy to see that because I do think he has talent, and I do think this is kind of a showcase for him.
Well, I agree with you. I think that it was the Detroit game on Thanksgiving where they finally took the training wheels off the bike and let him run the full offense. Because ever since then, he's been throwing it deep. You know, his stats have been really good. I've been hearing he's more of a Favre type than a Rodgers type. Not sure where they get that. But, yeah, he played really well. And I feel like if they would have just let the dude's been on the team for 3 years now, and they couldn't let off the reins after a couple of games. Like, I didn't understand that. So I feel like they should have done that way sooner in the season. They'd have a lot more success, but they didn't want to do that. LaFleur didn't want to do that. And now he's finally doing that, and they're succeeding, and they're beating the Chiefs.
Absolutely. And now Nick Banning does ask, he says, is Jordan Love the answer in Green Bay? I think it depends on what the question is. Because if the question is, do we have a quarterback of the future? Then I think, yes, he is the answer in Green Bay, because I do think that he is, a 15-year starter in the NFL. He has that kind of talent. I don't know if he will be. It seems like people are very impatient with him for some reason. I don't know what their expectation was that he was going to come in, because I know Aaron Rodgers sat for 2 or 3 years as well. And maybe the expectation was like, oh, well, that's okay, because he just did what Rodgers did. So he's going to come in and be Rodgers. And then they were like, oh, he's not Aaron Rodgers. But statistically, he is compared to Aaron Rodgers' first 12 games. He's just not Aaron Rodgers career-wise, but he hasn't had a career yet. Give him a chance.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, but like I was saying, like the Packers are a team that they develop most of their draft picks. So they've been developing this guy for 3 years. So it's like after 3 years, you'd think they would have the confidence in him to let the reins go and let him, to have the whole offense. But they handcuffed him the whole first part of the year. So that's why they are 6-6 right now.
Okay. And Nick does say a good answer, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Nick. And,
thanks, Doc.
The other point I had to make on this, and this is something that's a pet peeve of mine, is when people say Jordan Love beat Patrick Mahomes in this game. Because how many times we hear about head-to-heads? Oh, Eli Manning has this record against Tom Brady, or so-and-so has this, Joe Burrow has this record against Lamar Jackson, right? They're not playing against each other, all right? It's not the NBA. They don't guard each other. Patrick Mahomes or Jordan Love didn't pick off a Patrick Mahomes pass and return it for a touchdown. You know what I mean? Tom Brady in the Super Bowl didn't sack Eli Manning. They're not playing against each other. They're playing against each other's defenses. So I hate when they say this is a quarterback's record against this quarterback when they don't actually play against each other.
I agree with you on that. But in a way, the way this stat ever comes to be is because they kind of are going back and forth. They're not necessarily playing one against each other, but they are going teams against teams. So I kind of get that reference, but let's talk about that the Chiefs are the most beatable they have ever been right now. Would you agree?
Not that they've ever been, but maybe under Andy Reid and Mahomes, right?
Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I mean they're because you have to remember when they first got started, they had Tyreek Hill and they had all these weapons. They've lost weapons over the years, one at a time, two at a time. They still have Kelsey. I think Mahomes is being asked to do more than he has ever been asked to do, which is leading to those turnovers because he's only human. But at the end of the day, he's still the number one quarterback in the NFL. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, regardless of his statistics. So I won't bet against him no matter who they're playing against. I always think like Tom Brady. I was never going to bet against Tom Brady. I won't bet against Mahomes either. But I would say yes, that they look in terms of weapons like they have the fewest amount of weapons they've ever had, which might make them easier to scheme against.
My thought is they're kind of a dynasty on the rise, right? The Chiefs.
Well, yeah, I think they're already there.
Okay, they're already there. But I would say that wouldn't you say that this year is kind of a Super Bowl hangover, even though they're like a dynasty?
No. I mean, they're still gonna win the AFC West. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's not gonna be the Raiders. It's not gonna be the Chargers, right? I mean, maybe the Broncos can make a push, but I don't think so. So
no, they'll
still
probably win the division. But I'm just saying, I think they're going to get bounced in the first round, whoever they play.
I don't know, but even that Tom Brady, were the Patriots a dynasty with Tom Brady? Because there were times they got bounced in the first round. You know what I mean? So it's okay to get bounced. They're in the playoffs every single year, though. They're a contender every single year. If they make the playoffs, which they will, right? Tell me right now that the Chiefs aren't going to be one of the top 3 favorite teams. There might be, again, you get the 49ers, but they're going to be one of the top favorite teams. I mean, they're going to be that until they don't have Mahomes anymore.
True, but also this might be the first year that Mahomes has to go on the road for the playoffs. He's had the luxury of playing at home almost every playoff game until this year. This year he's going to have to go and play on the road somewhere. And I can't wait to see that, to see what he actually does.
Now, Jim Powell says Mahomes believes his own hype and is trying to pack more than he can. Again, Jim, I don't think he believes his own hype. I was just saying, I think he's being asked to do more than he's ever been asked to do. He doesn't have Tyreek to throw to. He doesn't have this elite defense that can pick him up when he does make those mistakes. So unfortunately, I said the human nature in him is trying to do whatever he has to do in order for them to win, and sometimes it's going to backfire. So I'm not going to put it on Mahomes' shoulders like his bad play per se, because I think he's doing the best he can, and he still looks incredible. When you watch the Chiefs play, he still looks really good.
Like, I think the reason why they're struggling is because all he has is Kelsey. All his other guys they've been dropping the ball like crazy. And then defenses are taking away the middle of the field from Kelsey. So he's got like no one. Like you said, he's asked to do a lot, and he's not coming through. And that's why they lost to the Packers. And I feel like you said that he is being asked to do a lot, but then he's being shut down in all his options. So like, what is he supposed to do?
I don't know. And again, and Jim also had said earlier that if he isn't the answer, Jordan Love, then he is a hell of a question. I guess, yeah. If he's not the answer, if Green Bay is like, because they signed him to a 1-year extension, so they got him for this year and next year, and then he's a free agent. If by the end of next year he's not the answer, Green Bay's in trouble.
They are in trouble because, like I said, they developed this guy for 3 years. So it's like if they don't decide to like keep him and develop him some more, then they're in real big trouble.
All right. Well, let's see here what we have for our next topic here. And one quick second. Okay, yeah. Next topic. Oh, yes, another quarterback. This will be a fun topic because I'm very interested to see what you have to say about this. So Zach Wilson is going to be the starter this Sunday. It's been named, and Zach Wilson did come out and say, if I'm asked to play, I'm not going to say no. I will play. I just don't want to play because I'm afraid of getting hurt. And I really wanted to get your take on this because if I'm being honest, this is not college football and this is not the Tostitos Bowl. Okay, this is the NFL and you are paid to play whether you're going to get hurt or not. Tough luck. You have to play. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on a player saying, I kind of want to sit out the rest of these games out of fear of injury.
Well, first off, this year was supposed to be like a redshirt year for him. Like it was supposed to be Rodgers. He wasn't supposed to play. Rodgers gets hurt the first four plays of the game. He's thrown in there. and then he doesn't do well, and then he's tossed out. Tim Boyle's put in when Tim Boyle should have never freaking been put in the game. I'm sorry. So this kid has been kind of been thrown back and forth. Like they have no confidence in him. So like as a player, if I was him, I'd be the same way. I'd be like, dude, you tossed me out, you tossed me back in, and all of a sudden now you want me to be the quarterback, but yet you put me behind this god awful offensive line, and that's why and the word that was used was he was reluctant to start, which I don't blame him because that line is terrible. Look at Rodgers is out for the whole year because of that line.
I think he's out because of a fluke. Because again, I understand the more you get hit, the more likely you are to be injured. And Wilson is a smaller guy, frame wise. I mean, I think he's 6'3", but he's smaller frame wise. So maybe he is worried about that. But like I said, this is your job. If you're a running back, and the running backs, think about all the punishment they take, right? If you're a running back behind a bad offensive line, can you imagine Barry Sanders telling the Lions, "Hey guys, I'm reluctant to start next game because I might get hurt."
Like, see, me, I kind of agreed with both sides. Like, I agree that you should never say that. I think that was one of those things that he tried to, he probably threw out, he said off the cuff, and he probably didn't totally, when you're pissed off, you say things that you're just mad about and you just vent. And I feel like that was one of those things where he was just like, man, they want me to start, but this freaking line is terrible. I feel like it was just thrown off the cuff. And somewhere in that organization, they let it leak because even Rodgers came out on Pat McAfee and said that he thought it was, sorry for my language, chicken shit that the Jets did that and called them out.
No, for sure. And Jim Powell does say saying this out loud is something the O-line probably should never have heard. The door will swing open a lot quicker now than it would have been. I don't think you remember in Any Given Sunday they talk about the invisible juice. He's like, I have invisible juice, and then the offensive line didn't really block for him. I'm like, what's the matter? You run out of invisible juice,
right?
So I understand the whole I think of throwing your offensive line under the bus. I don't know. Do you feel like he was throwing the offensive line under the bus? Because I felt like he was just saying, I'm reluctant to play, dude, because I don't want to get hurt, which obviously in my mind, it could be the offensive line, but it also could be maybe he's dealing with a knee injury that we don't know about. I don't know all the particulars. If I were him, I'd try to spin it that way. Like, oh yeah, the team knows I have a sore knee or a sore ankle. So I just want to be careful.
I don't think he was necessarily straight up throwing the O-line under the bus. I think he was just saying that the whole team is not where they thought they would be. So he's reluctant to go in there and he get injured or whatever. Maybe he has some nagging injury that he doesn't want to get worse. So, and then I got to tell you, I complained about Rodgers last episode. I'm going to complain about him again. He goes on his show and he's like, people are trying to assassinate his character. But when you say something like, I'm reluctant to play when you're paid to play pro sports, why does Rodgers have to comment on every little freaking thing? I get this is his team, but he's injured. He's out. It's like, just shut up.
Well, there's certain character traits that people have, especially with actors. And I know he's not an actor, but where they like to be the center of attention. Brett Favre loved to be the center of attention. That's why he used to hold out every single training camp until the first game of the season. And then he would show up. And Aaron Rodgers has followed the diva in that, where he likes to be the center.
Yes, he has.
So I think that any chance he gets to put himself in front of a camera for whatever reason, whether it's defending Zach Wilson, whether it's his old team winning, doesn't matter what it is, whatever reason he has to get in front of a camera, he's going to take it.
And so I'm going to throw this out there. What if he pulls the same bull crap that he did last year and he goes into some dark room and he's like, I don't know if I want to play for the Jets next year. And he does this same stuff over again, which he could do. And it's like the Jets are just stuck holding the bag. They let him make all these decisions with personnel, all these players they brought in, and it's not working. So that just shows you that Aaron Rodgers, the GM, is not a good GM.
Well, the only people who are good GMs are GMs, and even they're only good half the time. So
right.
I definitely don't believe in letting players be GMs, owners be GMs. Only the GM should be the GM, and leave it at that.
But the Jets let him take control over everything. They brought in Lazard, they brought in Cobb, they brought in Delvin Cook, who they didn't even really need. They had Breece Hall, all these pieces. And then Lazard was a couple weeks ago. I texted you about this, that he was a healthy scratch in the game. So it's they pay all this money. They gave him a $44 million deal for him to be a healthy scratch on the sideline.
Well, he was probably afraid of getting hurt.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. But I mean, that whole franchise is in complete disarray. And if Rodgers doesn't come back, you know what? I'm not going to be sad about it.
All right. Well, let's talk about some streaks. So I got the thing up. Okay, we got to do the little next thing. Here we go. So 3 streaks we're going to talk about. Let's start with your Broncos because that's a streak that ended.
I knew you
The
were
other
gonna
two
do
are still
that, Wayne.
going.
I knew you were gonna do that.
So they had their 5-game winning streak snapped. Let me see here against the Texans, 22-17.
Wilson had 3 picks.
3 picks. I have that written down. Yeah. So first we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about where they go from here. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on the game against it. The Texans are a good team. I mean, this isn't a horrible loss.
We've had some shots, though. I don't know if you watched the game, Wayne, but in the beginning of the game, we took a few deep shots that if those would have turned out, the game might have been completely different. But Sutton dropped the ball. We didn't get those good passes. And we struggled most of the game. And then in the fourth quarter, we actually could have came back and won the game. And then Russell throws another pick. But you know what? I don't blame him because he was trying to win the game like he always does. He always comes through in the fourth quarter. It didn't come up for us this time, but I still think we have a shot at the playoffs.
Okay, well, that's my next thing. I do have to say, Jim here says, of course it ended. They're the Broncos. So I know Jim does not like the Broncos.
Jim.
So, all right, so let me ask you this, because you said they still make the playoffs. I was looking at their last 5 games, and this is who they have. The Chargers twice. Those should be 2 wins. The Patriots, that should be a win. The
I'm going
Raiders,
to that game.
That should be a win.
Yeah. And I'm going to the other Chargers game here on New Year's Eve also.
And then the Lions. So let's say they lose to the Lions. They still finish 10-7. That should be good enough to be a wild card.
So you're saying that they're going to lose the Lions and win the rest?
I'm saying that's what I'm thinking because the other 4 games are very winnable.
Yes, if we win 4 of the next 5, I think that we're in. We'll be in 10-7. But the AFC is such a gauntlet right now. But a lot of the big teams that are up in the rankings, their quarterbacks are hurt. Like Pickett's out. Deshaun Watson's out. I can't remember them all, but some of the best quarterbacks that are in the league, which is Russell, Allen, those guys still have a chance to make it and be in this playoffs. So I feel like you gotta watch the remaining good quarterbacks that are left on teams.
Okay. Well, the other streak here is the Colts. They're riding a 4-game winning streak, but that 4-game winning streak was against the Patriots, the Panthers, the Titans, and the Bucks. So it isn't like they're on a 4-game winning streak against the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Ravens. I mean, they're beating bad teams that they should beat. They are, however, 7-5. Their next game, I believe, is against the Bengals, which you would think would be a win. But watching that game last night and Jake Browning going 32 of 37 for
he looked really good.
He looked amazing. I was like, man, they may not need Joe Burrow to come back.
Shout out to Dr. Nick, who started Browning in his fantasy game, and he came through with some points.
But I think that's a game now that they could lose. You got the Falcons, the Raiders; those are easy games. The Texans, and then the Steelers, possibly with Mitchell Trubisky. Now, again, they're at 7-5. They could be at 10-6. They could be at 9-8. I don't think they finish worse than 9-8 because I think they go at least 2-3 in these last 5 games.
I really need them to be 9-8, so my boys get in.
Well, that's where I have them. And the other team here, the Rams, they're riding a 3-game winning streak again against the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Browns without their starting quarterback. So again, not really impressive 3-game winning streak. They're 6-6. Their remaining games are against the Ravens, the 49ers, the Saints, and the Commanders. So they could very well be 7-10 by the end of this.
I'm glad that you told me those games because I was like, man, the Rams could go on a run, but I don't know about against those teams. Their run might be over. Their streak might be ending next week or this Sunday.
I definitely think it is. And we mentioned the Steelers. Actually, no, I'll touch on the Steelers in the 2-minute warning. I had that written down. I was looking at the wrong section. So we're talking about teams, and so we have to get into our power rankings. This is Jim's favorite segment because I know how much he loves my power rankings. But let's get into the NFL power rankings. So we are going to talk power rankings. And as always, we like to start off with Mark's power rankings because he has fewer of them than I have. But he did add a little wrinkle, and he'll talk a little bit about that here. And so his power rankings as such. Oh, actually, you know what? I did not add the new wrinkle. I have last week's power rankings in here. All right, Mark, talk about your power rankings for a little bit. I'll get the graphic up, but just talk about them for a little bit here.
Okay, give me a second. I gotta pull up them again. One real quick second.
Okay.
Got to pull up the text chain. My bad.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Okay, so my power rankings for this week are number 1, the 49ers, 2, the Eagles, 3, the Ravens, 4, the Dolphins, 5, the Cowboys, 6, Lions, 7, the Chiefs, Jaguars are at 8, Texans are at 9, and the Colts are at number 10. And my new wrinkle this week is that I added 5 teams that are on the outside looking in of the top 10. And those 5 teams are the Bills, the Browns, the Packers, the Rams, and my Broncos.
Yeah, what's the old one again I had up there? Yeah, it's so weird that I have power rankings. So for some reason I did not have the graphic saved. I must have accidentally over-saved the old one. So I did want to talk to you though about your outside looking in, because your rankings did change a little bit. So let me ask you about these. First of all, the Steelers, last week you had them 9th. This week they're not even on the outside looking in. They're just totally gone.
Well, they lost to, I'm drawing a blank on who they lost to, but they lost to somebody. They lost this last week, and then they lost Kenny Pickett. So I really don't see them going they're not going to be on the power ranking probably going forward the rest of the season.
Okay. Well, and I do want to touch on we talked about the Colts, and Jim had mentioned, I don't think you bet against the team with Gardner Minshew. Man, I love Minshew Mania. I do like Gardner Minshew.
Maybe he's the reason why they're winning. Who knows?
It could be. All right. So I'm glad that you mentioned that Mitchell Trubisky is now the quarterback, and that's one of the reasons, because my other question was about the Browns, who you do have looking in, and just benched Joe Flacco to go back to DTR. So their quarterback situation is even worse than the Steelers.
It is. That's why they're not on they're not on the top 10 either. They're looking in because of their record still, but they could be like the Rams and have a tough going the rest of the season.
And of course, you have the Broncos looking in.
We are looking in because I feel like if we beat the Chargers and we go on, like you said, if we win 4 of the next 5, we're going to be in that picture. So maybe we might be in the top 10 if we win some games coming up.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring up my graphic here. This may be the old graphic as well. And if it is, we'll just have to go. Oh, no. I got for some reason, I have the correct one for my power rankings. So my power rankings, we've got the 49ers, of course, in first. They've been in first all year except for the 1 week the Cowboys were in first. The Ravens, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Jaguars, Lions, Texans, Bills, and Chiefs round out the top 10. The Commanders have a new spot in dead last. They were,
dead last.
They were 31st, last week. So that's kind of where they stand. I'll let you know kind of what the biggest swings have been. We do have the biggest jump was the Bengals, who went from 16 to 13 after their win over Jacksonville. The biggest fall was
the Commanders have the biggest drop.
They did not, actually, because again, they only dropped 1 spot, and they didn't drop the most in points. They did drop 24 points per game, but the biggest drop in points per game was the Browns. They lost 48 points per game, and the Browns did drop 4 spots. So they had the biggest fall, and they had the biggest loss in points per game. The biggest gain, believe it or not, in points per game was the Cardinals. They gained 41 points per game after they beat the Steelers.
That was a team. Okay.
Yeah, they gained 40, and they've got Kyler Murray back, so I get it. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, just putting it up there. One more time for the masses. Again, we see the Patriots will be in dead last, I think, by the end of the season. The Panthers are going to keep moving up. The Broncos, I know you were talking about, they were on a run. They dropped a few points too. They're now at negative 78, 98. They need to make a run to get out of the negative.
Well, we play the Chargers, and you got them at 19, so we might be surpassing that team soon.
Well, and one of the reasons the Broncos are so low, and I've talked about this with my rankings, is that
70 burger.
The 70 burger with the 800 yards that they give up to the Dolphins. You take that game out, they're probably right on that fringe of the positives.
So many yards, so many points, dude. Oh, God. Let's not think about that.
I love that Jim Powell said, I do not understand how a 10-2 team is fifth. Jim, you also didn't understand how they weren't in first, and then they got completely blown out by my team that is first. And I'll tell you again, because I've explained this numerous times on how these power rankings work. They are measuring how good you do each week versus a team's season averages. The Eagles are barely beating teams. They're barely beating them by like 3 points, 5 points. And these are teams that they should be beating, that other teams are beating by 15, and they're only beating them by 5. So that's why they're so low in the power rankings. Now, I will say this. They actually dropped to 6th, So despite getting blown out 42-19, they only dropped one spot. And that's because the team that beat them is blowing everybody out. So it's not a huge loss to get blown out by them.
And they only lost to the 49ers, but they got blown out by the Niners. So that's probably a lot of reason why they got ranked down, right?
Well, again, only one spot though. They went from 5th to 6th.
But still, because they got blown out, they got ranked down a notch.
Right. What really is killing them is that loss to the Jets. That's a minus 700 points on the season.
The Jets. I still am boggled by that one.
I don't get it either. But that's why they are where they are. And again, this is not a predictive algorithm. We're not saying, they're in 6th. That means that they're going to finish 6th for the year. It just means that over the course of this year so far, they have played the 6th the best of any team. They do get 100 points for a win. They get negative 100 points for a loss. So they do take wins and losses into account. But that's what I was saying last week, is that this is a team that gets 100 points per win. They've got 10 wins, and they're still only 159 points per game because they're losing points. Even when they win games, they're losing points because they're not winning by very much. He does say, you probably voted for Bama. I'll be honest with you, Jim. I voted for LSU because I want to see Jaden Daniels, man, the Patriots' #1 overall pick next year.
Let's just say that Florida State got hosed.
Not really,
hosed. But I got a question for you, Wayne. Out of all the teams in the negative, who do you see jumping out of the negative and ending up in the positive by the end of the year?
I mean, the teams in the negative are really bad. I would say the Cardinals with the return of Kyler Murray, but they're at negative 146.7 points per game. So they would need to start blowing teams out to finish the season. So I don't think they're going to. So really, you're looking at the teams. You're looking at the Seahawks, the Falcons, and the Broncos. The Falcons still stink. The Seahawks could. The Seahawks, they're only at negative 24. They were in the positive last week. They're +3. So, I mean, they just fell into the negative. They could make it back into the positive. And unfortunately, yes, the Broncos at negative 78.98. If they go 4-1 the last 5 games, they'll be in the positive.
Well, that's all I want. I want to be in the positive, and I want to be in the playoffs. That's what I want.
And Jim says, obviously, the Raiders. Jim, again, the Raiders were at, where do I have them here? Negative 192.23 per game. So they're they're about as good as the Eagles, if we're going to really say that, but in terms of how they're performing against teams. So
this show isn't for Raiders talk. Sorry, Jim.
Hey, I'm an equal opportunity person. My team's going to be in last. I'll talk about anybody's team.
Okay, so out of the teams in the positive, do you see any of them going negative? Like the Seahawks?
Well, again, you got those fringe teams. The Chargers are at 3.52. The Saints are at 13.07 points per game. I think the Steelers do free fall. The Steelers are at 41.54, and I don't think Mitchell Trubisky he maybe goes 1-4 the last 5 games of the year, and that drops them probably down to the negative. And the Colts and the Browns. So as much as we like Gardner Minshew, although at 64.32 a game, they'd have to really get blown out. So I'd say my biggest takeaway, other than the obvious, would be the Steelers.
And I can see that Mitchell Trubisky is not the answer. And like I was saying in the last episode, this could be Mike Tomlin's first losing season.
Could be. But yeah, so those are our power rankings. And now we're going to dive into our 2-minute warning. Even though there's 15 minutes left here, I feel like we're going to take up a little bit of time here with this segment. Okay, so the 2-minute warning. This is where we talk about our teams. I think I went first last week.
All right, but you're very passionate about your topic, so I want you to go first.
Okay, so I'll put the Patriots on the back burner. I'll still talk about them, but the topic I really wanted to talk about here in the 2-minute warning is Jamal Adams versus Connor Hughes. So if you're not following the story, or if you hadn't heard about it, Connor Hughes and Jamal Adams have a history together. Connor Hughes covers the Jets, so he knew Jamal Adams when Adams was with the Jets. They did not get along. They don't like each other. Connor Hughes posted a video of Jamal Adams getting beat by the Cowboys on a deep route or something like that with only the caption, "Yikes." And that's all he left it at. So Jamal Adams found a picture of Connor Hughes' wife, posted it on Twitter, and said, "Yikes." And there has been a bit of an uproar about this, thinking that he crossed the line by going after Connor Hughes' family. And I 100% disagree. He did not cross the line. We all know the saying, all is fair in love and war. This is war. When Connor Hughes posted that video of Jamal Adams and said, "Yikes," he was picking a fight with Jamal Adams. He was going to war with him. this is fair game. All right. You shouldn't have picked the fight with him. So I'm not going to rush to Connor Hughes' defense because, in all honesty, everything I've read about him is that the guy's a douchebag. All right. So, I mean, so can Jamal Adams be at times, but I am 100% behind Jamal Adams on this one. I think that if somebody, whether it's a fan, a sports reporter, whoever, goes after you with a personal attack, which this was, it's okay to attack him or his family.
How is that a personal attack? All he did was miss a play, and he was just saying, man, yikes, like that was a bad play. Like, how is that personal?
I like how you I like the tone that you implied to his yikes was more subtle, whereas the tone I implied to the yikes was a lot more aggressive, because they do have a history, and this guy does dislike Jamal Adams, and he didn't break down the play. He didn't put up on a big screen and say, all right, look at how Adams gets twisted around here. He misses the guy going to the bet. He didn't do that. He just posted a video and only wrote one word, yikes. That is a personal attack. All right. He did not go deeper into it. It is basically, look, listen, this guy stinks. He might as well put Jamal Adams stinks. That's what he should have written.
Okay, so I don't know their feud. I'm glad that you told me a little bit about their feud, that they do have a Twitter feud going on, which I think is dumb, by the way. He's the professional athlete. This guy is an adult. Come on, let's be an adult here. But anyways, I think that, okay, granted, he may have been, you think that what he said was personal with this play. I don't think it was personal. I think it was just like, yikes, it was a bad play. But Jamal Adams throwing his wife into it and saying yikes, dude, that's personal. That play was not personal. His wife is personal. If somebody dude, my wife has passed, God rest her soul. But if anybody was to ever say something about my wife, oh, dude, that would be it. That is so personal. So how are you going to say that a play that he does every day that he's paid for was personal?
Because he did it to Jamal Adams. Every single week somebody gets beat like that on every single team. And this guy doesn't cover the Seahawks, and he doesn't cover the Cowboys. He covers the Jets. So why is he posting a Seahawks highlight and writing yikes instead of a Jets highlight, where there's plenty of yikes with the Jets this year? Why is he posting a Seahawks highlight and writing yikes? Because he wanted to personally attack Jamal Adams, and Jamal Adams fired back. And like I said, all is fair in love and war. For me, when you attack a person, you attack their family, right? I mean, how many times do we see like a celebrity gets attacked and then their kid gets bullied at school because their dad was attacked or whatever, right? It affects your whole family. So if you're going to say something about me negatively that affects my whole family, I'm just going to skip the middleman and go right for your family.
I can see that point of view, but like, couldn't he have gone a different direction and still been a personal attack towards that guy instead of his wife?
I mean, couldn't Connor Hughes have gone a different direction and actually covered his own team?
True. I don't know, dude. I'm going to chalk this up to, this is just stupid Twitter beef, and they're not, if they keep this going, it's whatever. It's good talk for us, obviously. But, I think the whole thing is dumb. Let's be adults here. Come on.
It is dumb. I'm just saying all the people who rushed against Jamal Adams saying that he crossed the line, I'm saying they were both immature idiots about it.
No, they both crossed the line. So yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, and that's all. That's the point I was trying to make. Now, before you get into the Broncos, you had an off Bronco point, kind of, right?
Okay, so for my 2-minute warning, I have an off. Mine is sort of about the Broncos, but not. So there was a story that came out that Von Miller, our former awesome Hall of Famer linebacker, had an altercation with his baby's mama. They said that he grabbed her by the neck and he pushed her. And there was a warrant filed. He turned himself in. He was arrested. He posted bail. The next day, his baby's mama came out and said, oh, this was all blown out of proportion. All this stuff that didn't happen. So now I come to think, like, what did really happen? Like, I think Von's a good dude. I don't think he may have had an argument with this girl, but I don't see him the type that grabbing her neck and shoving her, especially when she came out and recanted the whole thing. So my point is like, now they want to like suspend Von, put him on this commissioner's leave or whatever they call that, pay him to not play. But the lady recanted her statement. And then I've heard from a lot of other fans, other Bronco people in Bronco country, they were like, did Von Miller pay her off? Which I don't buy. I don't believe that. So I think Von's getting a bad rap. I think he's a good dude. I think he got wrapped in a baby mama drama situation. She flipped up the drama more by calling the police, saying he did this and this, and then realized, oh, I shouldn't have said all that, and then recanted everything. So he shouldn't be punished if he's not being charged.
So, first of all, I don't like the terms baby mama and baby daddy. I think that they're derogatory terms. I think that they actually take away from the importance of the role that you play in this child's life at some point. And to me, it's a completely disrespectful term. But that said, I'm going to say this because I do see kind of both sides of the situation. I don't know Von Miller personally, right? I do know this. He is a gladiator. He goes to war every week, right? A lot of these guys have violent tendencies. Even if they're the nicest guys on the planet, they can get violent because that's just what they do for a living. That they're trained to be violent, like pit bulls, right? Pit bulls are sweet dogs unless you raise them to be fighting dogs, right? And then they're not. NFL players have been raised to be fighting dogs, all right? Even if they're the nicest, kindest people, it is in them to do that. So, and this wasn't a situation where they talked about how he held her down or threw her on guns like Greg Hardy. You know, he grabbed her by the neck and pushed her, which you shouldn't do. Keep your hands off of your spouse. But that said, so it's not unrealistic to me that this could have happened and that he could have said, and she could have said, oh man, I don't want to burn this bridge because it is a $100 million bridge that'd be burning. So I don't want to burn that. So she may have recanted. I mean, Ray Rice's wife came out and said, oh, this was all my fault. You know what I mean? Because she kind of felt like he was going to take the rap and that was going to be it for the both of them, which it ended up being. So I could see this as a situation where she's trying to backpedal now to protect him / his money, which is also hers.
But besides that, what's your opinion on what the NFL is going to do about it?
I understand. I mean, the commissioner's exempt list, which is where they put people while they're still investigating a situation, right? And they don't necessarily trust law enforcement to investigate it. They want to investigate it on their own. Plus, they also want to hear law enforcement's review of it, because if law enforcement says we're going to charge this guy, then it's no pay, you know? But if they're not going to charge them, then you get paid for the time you're out, and it doesn't ruin their image because you weren't on the field. I mean, to me, from what I've read, is that this is a less egregious thing than, Adrian Peterson whipping his kid bloody at 2 years old, and he got put on the commissioner's exempt list. I still say I hope Adrian Peterson dies in a car accident. He's one of the worst human. He's Jeffrey Epstein of NFL.
Hot take.
I hate, and I don't hate people. I hate him. Anybody who hurts children does not deserve to be on this planet. But I digress. So if they choose to do that with Von Miller, I get it, because they're waiting and he's getting paid. It's like being paid leave. Like somebody at work accuses you of inappropriate behavior, right? They can't just not pay you. They can tell you to go home while they look into it, but they have to pay you while you're at home because they don't know whether or not it's true.
But so I think they actually would do that? Do you think they'll actually put him on the list?
They may. Again, I think they look into it a little bit first, and then if they feel like there is some substance to it, then they will put him on the list. Which, when I say substance, what I mean is that at the end of the day, if she drops her charges and all the charges are dropped, if they feel like this happened, even if the charges are going to be dropped, they'll suspend him with pay until the charges are dropped.
Well, I hope that none of that happens. I hope that he isn't the one that did this stuff. But like you said, I kind of agree with that fact that he isn't a violent nature person in his job. So maybe he did do it, maybe he didn't. But I look at, like, deep down, he's a good guy. I feel like maybe he was one of those things where he started to be violent and then he realized, shit, I shouldn't do this. I need to stop, and he didn't let it escalate any further. But people aren't talking about that. They just want to assume that he did the worst, which I don't like. I hate that immediately when somebody gets in trouble, you immediately think the worst of them, like they're the worst person ever. They deserve jail. He deserves to be on the commissioner's exempt list. And I don't believe any of that for Vaughn. I think that he got in an altercation with his ex-wife. I know you don't like the term, baby's mama, and some stuff happened. But I feel like he wasn't charged. The NFL will investigate. His girlfriend or his baby's mom recanted the statement. So they have no what's the word? They have no evidence to show that he actually did this. So how can they put him on the exempt list if they don't have any evidence?
Well, look, because it's not like there's being put in the exempt list isn't a punishment. It is you're waiting for us to finish our investigation.
But
And
it kind of is a
just
punishment because these guys want to play, dude. And not being able to play is a big deal.
but the allegation is a serious allegation. And so they're just saying, listen, while we look into this, you can't play because it would look really bad for us if you do get found guilty of this. And we were letting you play the whole time, knowing you were charged with it or knowing that this accusation was out there. So they're saying, hey, listen, sit this one out. We're going to pay you to sit it out, which is like 11 million a year. We're going to pay you to sit this one out while we look into it. And they may just say, hey, listen, we didn't find anything. Although, like I said, this police report, there is a police report. And if the police report says that there were hand marks on her neck or something like that, then there might be enough to go on for them to say you're done for the year.
Right. So I guess we'll have to see what the NFL does. But as of now, he is stated to start this next Sunday.
I do like Jim's comment here. Jeffrey Dahmer probably had things he was good at, and people thought he was okay.
Come on, you're comparing serial killers to Vaughn. Come on, Jim.
Hey, it is what it is.
That's a far-fetched, bro.
So I do want to bring up a Patriots topic since we are in our 2-minute warning here. The Patriots defense, it became the first team in 38 years to allow 10 points or fewer and lose 3 games in a row.
Dude, I was gonna send you that in our text chain, and I didn't even think about it. I'm glad that you're talking about this.
So I do think it's funny, and even more is that over the last 4 games, the Patriots have allowed the fewest points in the NFL. The 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place teams are all like undefeated, and the Patriots are 0-4, 0-5. So I think it's great for Bill Belichick, right? Because he's a defensive guy, and he can kind of say, this is why you shouldn't fire me. I have a good team if I can get a good offense. My defense is legit. And by the way, this is a defense without Matt Judon and without Christian Gonzalez, who are going to come back next year. This defense will be even better than it is now. He just needs a quarterback. Don't fire him.
So we've gone back and forth about the whole Bill Belichick. We both agree he's not going to get fired. If he wants to go somewhere else at the end of the year, that might happen, but he's not going to get fired. And so I agree with you about they have a really good defense. The Patriots have always had a really good defense because of Bill Belichick. I think it's really embarrassing that they let the other team score 6 points and still lose the game. And like you said, they've played 3 games where they scored under 10 and still lose the game. This has got to be, sorry to say, Wayne, but an ultimate epic failure of your Pats.
It's a bad look. But again, I take the positive out of it, which is like, hey, look at how good our defense is, and it's going to be even better next year. That's how I'm approaching this. And we're going to have Jaden Daniels next year. Yay.
You hope.
Jim Powell did chime in. He was a Bronco talking about Von Miller. That's why it's not hard for him to believe because, Bill Romanowski, right?
I'm a Bronco fan, and I can't stand Bill Romanowski. So,
well, he was also a Raider.
He was, but I'm just saying, let's put that out there. That guy was on a whole nother level.
And then this is a topic I wrote this down. I didn't tell you about this one, but I did want to write it down because it came up in our chat, which is this. I had said something because Mark here had said to me that Sean Payton can evaluate talent. He said that, he almost drafted Patrick Mahomes. And I said, horseshoes and hand grenades, my friend. And he was like, I don't know what that means.
I don't.
And
I know now.
I couldn't believe you'd never heard horseshoes and hand grenades. So this is my segment of the show where I talk about grammar because we talked about the pre thing. So now horseshoes and hand grenades, not really grammar, but horseshoes and hand grenades.
Lesson from Wayne.
Right. What it means is if somebody says horseshoes and hand grenades, what they're saying is that close calls or almost doing something doesn't matter. It only matters if you do it. In horseshoes, it matters because you get points for getting it close. And in grenades, it matters because if you get it close, you win. So, but in most terms, when somebody says, "Oh, I almost dated that girl," or "Oh, I almost became the president," yeah, horseshoes and hand grenades, my friend. You didn't do it.
Like, granted, horseshoes and hand grenades, but I know you say that's Satan, whatever that's saying. But what my point was is that literally the pick right after. Or whenever, okay, so the pick right after the Chiefs, before the Chiefs jumped into that 15th pick, I forget what pick it was. Before the Chiefs did that, the Saints were going to pick Mahomes. Andy Reid jumped the Saints and picked Mahomes. And that was my point to you, is that he was literally going to pick Mahomes.
Okay, but he didn't. And
he didn't.
Bill Belichick was literally going to pick Justin Fields if he fell to 15. But the Bears jumped up to 10 to take him. So I mean, is Bill Belichick a
I
great
guess that's
talent
the NFL
evaluator?
draft, and we're going to get into that later on after the offseason. But it's just those like, man, imagine the Saints with Mahomes are, like you said, any other scenario.
Yeah. I'm imagining the Patriots with Jaden Daniels because I just said it. Now I'm keep thinking about it.
You got to hope that Belichick GM makes that call.
Oh, prediction tonight's game: Patriots Chiefs. I'm sorry, Patriots Steelers. What do you got?
Let's go Steelers. I need them to win for the Broncos playoff picture. Let's go Pitt.
I thought you wanted the Patriots to win.
No, as soon as that came out of my mouth, I realized I said the wrong thing. I need the Patriots to win for the Steelers in my playoff picture. So screw the Steelers. Let's go Pats. Sorry, Wayne. I need them to win tonight.
If you want to see an electric Thursday night game, expect this one to end. Expect this one to end 3-2. So that's how it's going to end.
Dude,
the Patriots
they said the over-under was like 30 points.
The Patriots are going to get a safety with that defense, and they're going to lose because they're going to kick a field goal over there in Pittsburgh, and they're going to lose 3-2 this game.
So thank you, Wayne, for this electric game from your team tonight. I'm going to be bored as hell watching it. I will tell you that right now. So I don't know why that, dude. I feel sorry for Al Michaels that he's got to do this game tonight.
He should call in sick because he might get hurt.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Jim just say, I'm from the Berg and I'm watching the Trolls with the granddaughter. Oh, nice. Trolls is a good show.
He doesn't care about the Berg.
Yeah, Trolls is a good movie, by the way. I recommend Trolls.
Okay, so
I haven't seen the new one.
Okay, so this isn't a movie podcast. The last thing I want to say is thanks, Nick. Thanks, Jim, for chiming in with comments. Please, anyone else, feel free to chime in. I know my aunt maybe have watched tonight, so hi, Aunt Linda. Not sure if you watched, but thank you if you did.
At NFL Experts Pod, hit us up with topics you want us to talk about. We'll give you credit for it. Talk to us about what we got wrong. I didn't get anything wrong, but Mark let him know what he got wrong. And we will see you next week on Wednesday. Wednesday next week.
Wednesday. Party on, Wayne.
Hey, party on, Mark.